having finished the rolling chassis, it's time to tackle the complicated bit. Let's see what we can do. I've oiled the screws, so hopefully they'll come apart. We'll see. Well, I've got this guy off. This is... oh wait, I got that upside down. This is the same as this piece here. It was over here. I've taken it off, and what I'm discovering is that the last nut out is put on with such ridiculous tightness that I have to go and put the part in the vise in order to hold back up. And my special little wrench here, my cheater wrench that isn't the original, cannot hold these nuts without the whole thing sliding sideways. I have to put it in the vise to get the pressure it takes to release it. So these jam nuts have been well and truly jammed. We'll see if they hold up or if I'm going to have to replace them. Well, that is the disassembly so far, and yes, you do need this for some of the spaces. You can't get a modern wrench in, and I am having to use the vise on probably 2/3 of these nuts just to hold back up on them, because they're on so freaking tight, and then painted, of course, and bent. The screws themselves don't appear terribly distorted, but you can see there's some shine on them. Some of the threads look a little bit wonky, but anyway, that's what we have so far. This, yeah, should be more like in that position. Okay, and that one there, as per what we see on this side, that one there goes through that one there, and it's pinned to this bar. So that's the way it goes. This one here is just screwed to the other connecting rod, and then the other end of it is pinned into that middle one there, which is what we have here. Okay, continuing. One thing I want to comment on is that you need to make sure that this interior nut, when they're being used as jam nuts, you want to make sure you loosen that one first, so that there's a visible gap on both sides before trying to turn this one. Otherwise, it can all jam up. It's a jam nut after all, and hold things up. But that is not what has been the issue with the vise. So it's that they're this one is ridiculously tight on many of these joints. But anyway, so yeah, make sure that one there is loose with visible gap on both sides before trying to turn the outer one. Here's another step in the process. Removed all the linkages that were on here. Got in a little bit of a bind. There we go. I removed the linkages on here. I had to remove the little collar right here that was right on that one. Let me show you this side. So there's a collar right there. I removed that so that I could get these linkages off, so that I could put them in the vise to get them apart. This is the order they go together in, and actually I can slide this off the bar to take it one more step into disassembly, but that's what we're dealing with. And that's what I mean by sliding it off the bar. I had to pry it open just a little, but it was on the bar there. Okay, now to this part here. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to have this whole side disassembled and clean and restore this side before I ever even attempt to take apart that side, because that's my best reference. Moving on. I'm a little curious that I noted. This is kind of curious. See, look, the set screw on that end of the collar is small. Set screw on that end of the collar is large. Let's see what it looks like on the other side. And it's hard to see down in there, but it appears the same as the case on that side. So the larger screw goes towards the rear on the train, on the locomotive. I think I figured out why that one's larger. It's because it actually is just a screw going through that flange. This one is a traditional screw that holds a rod. This one is screwing through this flange here. the sliding piece. Here that is. You can see that it's a slotted collar with a conventional larger, well, I don't know if it's not quite as big. It is still a smaller diameter, but it has a larger head, and it's used as a set screw to grab that hole right there. Okay, here's an idea. If that screw there, that set screw there, it's right there, it will not focus, the one that's right there, if that set screw there was instead oriented to the same direction as the push rod there, you could take it out of the assembly after the fact and then release the screw. Right now that's locking everything in, and it is really difficult to get a screwdriver in there because of the angle. We'll see what we can do, but when we put this back together, it would be better if that was oriented along the line of that push rod. Well, I've discovered that there's actually a washer and then the collar and then a jam nut on the screw that goes through that piece. There's the completed disassembly. This is the back part, that's this part over here. And then this part here is the complicated linkage right here. Right there. And then from this point here is this shaft right here on this screw. So that screw there and this whole assembly is below this one, and that screw there through that washer connects through that linkage to this collar. So this, and then this is attached down here to that. And there's the inside view of the other left-hand side of the engine. I've disassembled the right-hand side. This is the view of the left-hand side, showing how all that works together. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and disassemble this part here and see if I can get it cleaning. I've taken apart this assembly, which is badly bent, but it's the same as this piece here. You'll notice that these screws going up and down through this track, the screw head goes from the inside out and the nuts on the outside. There's also it's hard to see, but there's a lock washer under that, and that's what I found here. See, there's one lock washer. I don't know if you can see the gap in it. There you go. One lock washer, and then this one, the lock washer was broken on the bottom side, so I'm going to have to replace that. And another step further, notice that these screws also go through from the inside of this channel here into this guy. And then above that is this piece, which actually grabs, let's see, I think it's the shorter one, longer one. It grabs the longer one. The longer one is actually here, so this is kind of inverted. Let me move it around. This should actually be on this side. Yeah. Compared to the way this is configured, it's like that, with this being the bottom. So I need to flip that over to make that the bottom, like that. Anyway, because of the configuration of this, I'm just going to move this back though. So this piece here goes on right there. This piece here goes on right there. And then all of this comes back, with this being the bottom. This section here is actually laid out on the table upside down. So make it right side up, I guess it would be more like that compared to this part. Okay. Hopefully that's not terribly confusing. I'll give you another view of this guy here so you can see where everything kind of went. Okay, now I'm going to do a cleanup and at least a partial reassembly on all of this so that I don't lose the order before I take apart that. Okay, I have the right side out of the cleaning process, laid back out pretty much the same order that I had when I took it apart. I did notice that these two guys here, these slides, they came apart. They were stuck together front to back like that, and then when I cleaned them they came apart into two pieces. So there we go. That's it. Now I'm going to try to reassemble it. Let's see what happens. You know what? I'm thinking that it might be better if I go ahead and half clean this, just clean it from this half, and then reassemble it onto the piece, and then that way it's I can get it to be exactly right. And since this plate faces backwards, I don't think it's as critical if the cleaning process leaves some kind of difference between the two sides. But I don't think it will anyway. So let's try that. One more thing. This is the one I took off the front, the bigger of the covers for the cylinders, and it has a clear line across it for some reason where it has corroded. The nickel's gone and it's just rusty. So I'm going to use one of the other front ones that I had. It's just a little bit better. Okay, come up to my first issue. The way this is assembled here, this part that goes right through here, that long screw, is you have a screw coming in from the back side. There is a nut right behind it, right there. Then you have the sliding bit that goes back and forth. And then it comes out the other side. On the other side, there is a nut, and then a collar, and then the little cross-link bar right there, that cross-link bar, and then another collar. And there, it looks like, yeah, there's a washer. So it's nut, collar, washer, link bar, collar. That's the order. Okay, so I found out what a BH is. A BH is a collar, which means, although they're showing it where it appears to be a nut, that's actually a collar. And they're not even identifying that one. So there should be two collars in there, which corresponds to what we had assembled. But what we had assembled also has a washer that doesn't show up anywhere in this diagram. I may revise and try again. Okay, as assembled now, it matches the picture, except, and it matches how this one is installed. The only exception being this washer. This washer on this one was used right there between the two collars underneath the little bar here. But in the drawing, this BL, I bet that's a washer. I bet it's just poorly shown. I bet there is a washer there. Okay, now I feel a little better about it. It matches what was here. It matches the letters called out here, although the diagram itself doesn't appear to show the washer. It's called out right there, and so I put the washer in, and although that collar doesn't look like a collar, it's called out there and there, so I guess it is. This one here is never labeled as a collar. I guess they just assume you know what it is from the picture. So, yeah, I think I got it right. Okay, reverting back to the order they assemble things here, I went ahead and assembled this crank onto the main wheel assembly. I know I shouldn't have screwed it into the wheels yet, but I think I can get away with it because these ends are just rods and they should just slide in to this whenever I do that step. Unfortunately though, that seems to leave all this loose, which is less than ideal. Let me think about this again. Okay, a little bit of rethinking. Went ahead and pulled those off because this screw here is not going to fit through that gap right there on this side with this all assembled. So I have to do it in the order they did it, or in the order reverse of the order I took it apart. I'd rather do it their order and see if it works. Okay. So my next step, I believe, I'm going to see if I can assemble any more of this stuff out of this stuff. Well, now that was an unspeakable horror that I'd never like to go through again, and I get to do it again. This was incredibly difficult to get this system together. Things just did not want to fit, and there's things that are slightly out of line that are probably going to bind when we're on the engine, but if you look on the other side, you can see how badly bent outwards it is over there. So I'm guessing it's supposed to be bent outwards a bit over here too. Well, we'll find out. I had to take the connecting rod off of the wheels as well, and have to do it from this end and work back to that. So, yay. One thing I want to record is the curiously undersized screw goes right there. Same size threads, it's a little shorter, and it has a smaller head. Not sure why, but it does. After much effort and gnashing of teeth, I have it all back together. Wow, that was exciting. So, all the pieces back together, things are cleaner. Again, not perfectly new, but cleaner. And I'm sure I'm going to have to make some adjustments as I fit it onto the carriage here. But I am going to go ahead and I guess put the front piece on, because they show that being already installed, and then that should get me up to this point where they officially say install it. Now I have the pistons and the cylinders rather, and the valve gear and everything back together. Now to see if I can put it onto the chassis. Well, we have motion. Not sure it's the right motion. We have motion. Let's see how this checks out. Okay. Let's see. That should go on that side. That's what it should look like at that position. That's what it looks like. Okay. It's catching on the screw head right here. That's what that's all about. I want to see if I can screw that in tighter, but so far so good. Okay, making a little bit of progress with the smoke box part on the front of the train, kind of back in place. They're really vague about what goes on first. So, I'm thinking that I put that on in the wrong order and these need to go on first. We'll be back. Well, there's certainly a lot more of it together now. In order to start putting this together, to get this on, you have to have this plate, the front step, in, this guy, in place. So I had to get that on. When you get that on, you have to get the front pilot truck on, so I had to get that on. And then I discovered that to get this to bolt to the chassis down here, you have to have this already bolted on because the bolt goes through both. So I had to bolt these two together onto the chassis from below. And then I had to put the side rail on and screw it on here and here to get that together. And then I put this front piece on. You have to take on the steps Can't put it on as an assembly like this. You have to take the top step off, put the top step on the side, and then put the stairs on. Here's what it looks like. And I am still not sure about this valve gear because there seems to be a part of the valve gear that just flops. It doesn't attach to anything that I can see. But when you look here, it doesn't attach to anything either. It's just it just flops hanging off that and hanging off that. So how does that work? Don't know. I really don't know. I can really see why the inside of this thing had some surface rust, because you have to reach your hand all the way up in here to hold the back up on these nuts. Pretty ridiculous. Guess they had long-handed kids or skinny dads back when this thing came out. Okay, well, I have the front part together. Now I think I can go ahead and put on the cab. I'm going to have to leave this part off because I'm still missing KU. Well, actually I can't close off the back of this, come to think of it, because I still need to reach the headlight. So I guess this is where I'm going to stop for now. Here we go. I'll give you a fly around. Yeah. There we go. That's what it looks like. And those are the parts we need to put on. The reason I can't mount this is because it has a back on it, for one thing. I don't want to block off my only access. And I can just barely reach from here to the front right now. So if I add that, I won't be able to get to it. So I can't put that on. I have to leave it off. And then these guys here. I'm waiting for the KU. I'm waiting to find a KU, or I may have to just make a piece for that. And that is this piece right here. Has a little curve on it and grabs both of these pieces, both of those axles. And it looks like, there it is again. That's the same piece, the black one there. That's probably the best picture we have over there. KU, still need that, or excuse me, KG, still need that. I got KU, the axles. I need KG ash pan. Okay, on hold until we get that.